What in the world is going on with fees on platforms like Just Eat, Deliveroo, and Uber Eats? If you, like me, are one of the people that's asking this question constantly at the moment, this video that I found on ITV News might help a little bit. I'm constantly asking myself, what is the main aggregator? What is the main factor that's causing prices to go up and down? Obviously, we've got a minimum pay floor in place for Uber and Deliveroo, but is this pay floor really doing that much? What we've been told is the pay floor is affecting about 500,000 orders per year, which actually is not that many. So, what is the main factor that's driving whether pay is high or low or somewhere in the middle? This news story that I found on ITV News, it is about Uber Taxi, but I think it will shed a bit of light because this exact model is being used with Deliveroo, Uber, and Just Eat as well to help them decide how much your fee is when they offer it to you. So let's watch it through together. Pop some comments down below as to what you think, and I'll react to the video as we go as well.
Uber introduced dynamic pricing in March 2023, replacing surge pricing. Since then, every time you open the Uber app and request a ride, the price you pay is determined by factors beyond the distance travelled and time taken. For example, it can depend on where you are, on how many Uber drivers there are available around you, and on how many other people are trying to get a ride. If it's rush hour, or if the weather changes, or if a big event suddenly finishes in your area, then demand for Ubers and therefore the price you pay goes up. Uber says when prices surge, it incentivizes more drivers to get out on the roads, whereupon prices normalise. The company insists dynamic pricing ensures everyone can get a ride quickly and easily.
I feel like that is actually a perfect explanation as to what is actually going on. So most of the trips are affected by what is known as dynamic pricing. And I completely agree with everything that was said there. Especially when it comes to wet weather on with the delivery apps. This is, I think, the main factor that just pushes up pay because obviously people on bicycles are less likely to be out and people are more likely to be ordering food. However, the one thing that it doesn't mention that I feel like is going on, probably with taxis as well, but more so with food delivery, is that dynamic pricing is not just pushing fees up, it's also being used to push fees down as far as possible because we don't know how many riders are available against how many jobs are available. We don't know what their ratio is, but the companies do hold this information. And I feel like they've got a good idea as well as to how much the other companies will have available rider per job. And they're using this information literally on a millisecond basis to work out what the minimum amount that they can offer is. So yeah, I agree with everything, but I also think that this is driving down prices.
This is Uber X priority.
Hadi's been an Uber driver for 11 years. Uber used to take 20% of the fare, but since dynamic pricing, the company stopped telling drivers how much it takes each trip. We compared what Uber paid Hadi with what the company charged us and worked out Uber's fee was almost 40%.
It doesn't cost them anything to run this vehicle. Why do they have to take 40%? Because they don't pay the insurance, they don't pay the fuel, they don't pay the rental. I'm the one who's paying for it, so why is it fair? I need that explanation. And they're not transparent about it also.
Wow, 40%. Why am I not even surprised by that? Feels like they're trying to drain every penny out of British workers that they can get, Uber especially. And this is another, he raises a really good point as well. They're very, very untransparent and they're not paying really for anything to do with the trip other than the tech side of it. You know, they're not paying towards insurance or fuel, wear and tear on cars, etc., etc.
A new study by the University of Oxford suggests Hadi has reason to feel cheated. It analysed the data of 1.5 million trips by 258 Uber drivers between 2016 and 2024. It found that when Uber introduced dynamic pricing, the average price the customer paid rose to £43. The average hourly pay of drivers fell to £19. The amount of time drivers spent waiting for a trip rose above 2 hours a day, and Uber's income per driver rose significantly to £11.70 an hour.
£11.70 per driver per hour. Anybody else think that's absolutely crazy? I'd love to hear what like normal taxi firms make off their drivers per hour, because I feel like it probably nowhere near that. If you work for a local taxi firm, or if you run a local taxi firm, let me know in the comments. What do you generally take off your drivers? Because I feel like Uber's taking a lot more than a normal taxi firm would be.
Ruben Binns is an associate professor at Oxford's Department of Computer Science.
The thing that most surprised me was this fact that the higher the value of the trip, the more of a cut Uber takes. And so actually the more the customer is paying per minute, the less the driver is making per minute.
Is that exploitative?
I think so.
I think the results were spectacular. Our transaction growth, over 3 billion trips served.
Uber was born in America and now operates in 70 countries. The company made its first ever annual profit in 2023, the year in which dynamic pricing was introduced.
So as you can see, there seems to be a direct correlation between dynamic pricing coming in, Uber driver fees going down, and the company making vast sums of profit. This is what is happening to fees in this country. Because it's not just with taxis, I'm telling you. This is how delivery driving fees is being set up as well.
Hi, my name is Andrew Brem.
Uber declined our offer of an interview. In this video the company made for drivers, the UK management team says it's keen to meet them and get their feedback on their experiences. Uber says drivers in the UK collectively earned £1 billion in the first 3 months of this year.
It is in all our interest that you are all earning as well as possible. We all want to maximise the number of riders taking trips with Uber.
Anyone else think that even he doesn't believe what he's saying? And I know they go back to saying that Uber drivers made £1 billion in the first 3 months of the year. But this is an arbitrary figure, surely, because fair enough, they might have made £1 billion, but if 1 billion hours have been worked on the network, that equates to £1 an hour, which is not.
In a statement, Uber says it doesn't recognise the figures in the Oxford study and that all drivers get a weekly summary of their earnings, which includes a clear breakdown of what Uber and the driver receives from trips. Uber says its take of the fare does indeed vary from one driver to another and week to week depending on the trips, but on average it says the percentage has remained stable for several years. Uber doesn't say what that percentage is.
So not a big surprise that Uber is not recognising the data from the trial. I'm not surprised by that at all. I know I did a similar trial for Deliveroo about their minimum pay floor, where I found that about 2,500 orders that were audited by our trial, around about 35 to 40% of them didn't meet the pay floor. And they've basically just completely ignored the data that I gave them. So I'm not surprised at all by what Uber's said here. And it's, as you can see, it's not the most transparent of statements, is it? None of these companies want to be transparent about pay at all. Because if they were fully transparent about it, I feel like there'd be a bit of an uproar.
Uber insists all drivers earn the minimum wage. Hadi insists that's not his experience, not least because Uber doesn't pay him when he's waiting for trips.
I hear all the companies say things like this all the time, and I think it's the most ridiculous thing that they can say, because how can they guarantee that people are making the minimum wage? There's just absolutely no way that they could guarantee that. They don't know what our expenses are. It's just the most ridiculous thing that they feel like they can just come out in public and say that. I know most of us are making the minimum wage, but the main thing about this is that all these companies are taking too much, I feel, of the slice of the pie, and they're using dynamic pricing to do it because they've got all the data. They hold all of the data. They give a lot of the data to the restaurants, and they hold the rest of it. And what do they give us? Absolutely nothing. And I think that's where the power lies, is in the data. And we don't have any of it, and that's the issue. So that's what I feel like is dragging down fees, is dynamic pricing. So what can we do about this? So what I feel like we can do about it is know our worth. And what I mean by that is, if they send you through an order and you feel like that order is ridiculous for what you expect to be paid, just reject it. Just decline it. Especially if you're working over multiple apps, you know that another order will come through eventually. And this is the only way that we're going to use dynamic pricing to our advantage, is by telling the algorithms that we are not willing to work for these fees. I myself have set myself a standard that when it's busy, I expect to make £20 an hour. And I expect my mileage rate to be at least £1.50 per mile that I drive. And if we all start to adhere to these kinds of rates, I feel like the companies will have no choice but to increase the fees on the networks. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? I'll catch you in the next video. Cheerio, goodbye.